Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, I'll tell you why yesterday's win over the Brewers was the win of the year for the Philadelphia Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic doing sports talk radio here in the city of Philadelphia for over 5 years. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 4 seasons, and this is now my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, hitting that subscribe button if you're watching us on the YouTube. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, but you can also watch us on YouTube. And when you hit that subscribe button and the like button, you're going to get notifications when new episodes are posted. That way, it's super easy for you to keep up with all of our content and everything going on with the Phillies. It's free and easy to hit that subscribe button or to rate and review or to hit the like button. So I appreciate everyone who's done that and everyone who's going to do that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. So go ahead and check out FanDuel. You may hear it in my voice. I'm a little bit under the weather today. Part of the reason we have a later episode today. It was a good time for an off day, man. But I got my cough drop. I'm rolling through it. Listen, we needed to talk about last night's game. Or I guess yesterday afternoons that turned into last night's game, a long, 3.5 hour game that had just about everything you could ever imagine in a baseball game. A lead, a lack of lead, a comeback from both sides, a manager getting ejected, controversial calls, great defense, bad defense, great offense, bad offense, great pitching, bad pitching, everything you could imagine from Phillies, Brewers, Game 1. It was great. And I could say it was great because the Phillies ended up winning. So we're going to break down everything in what I called the win of the year for the Phillies. I also had some weird vision while I was sitting on the couch yesterday watching that game about what the future of the Philadelphia Phillies outfield is. It almost makes too much sense for it not to be the case. It's actually not that bad of a spot for the outfield to be in as soon as next year. And then, of course, it being an off day with the weird mid-series off day, we're going to do a standings check-in to give you an idea of where the Phillies sit in the National League and the league in general and the NL East after their 80th win of the season. But let's talk about that 80th win because, boy, was it a doozy. The Phillies had me on a roller coaster of emotions. I'm sure you as well out there. So Taijuan Walker makes the start, and he faces Jake Misiorowski. Seems like a mismatch right off the rip. Misiorowski, a guy who burst on the scene this year after 4 starts, made the National League All-Star roster, which I still will contend was a terrible decision by Major League Baseball. But the reason he did so is the guy throws gas. He's regularly hitting triple digits. He has really good stuff. He has struggled recently, but he has great strikeout ability. And Taijuan Walker does not really have that. He doesn't have the velo. He doesn't have the strikeout ability. And while he's put together a solid year for the Phillies, you always have this kind of voice in the back of your head when Taijuan Walker takes the mound saying, man, I hope this goes well, but there's a chance there's an implosion waiting around every corner. And excuse me. So Taijuan Walker, well, he did kind of have that implosion right off the rip yesterday. He gave up 3 runs in the first, gave up another run in the second, and you get to the point where he only goes 4 innings. He allows 7 hits, 5 earned, 2 walks. He only struck out 2. He gives up 2 home runs. And right off the bat, you're like, okay, well, Phils are down 4-1 through 2. Walker doesn't seem long for this game. It would be a miracle if we get 3 or 4 out of him. And the offense wasn't doing anything about Misiorowski. The shadows were kind of weird, it being a 4-10 start, and it was almost hard to see the ball on TV. I can't imagine what it's like trying to hit 100 from Jake Misiorowski at that point. And then all of a sudden, the Phillies just start clawing back. Bryce Harper, it's a big-time solo home run to straightaway center in the top of the 4th. And while it only cut the lead down to 4-1, and the Phillies then immediately gave up another run in the bottom of the 4th, well, then it still at least gave you the idea, okay, we scored. We can see this kid a little bit. We might be able to do something. And then all of a sudden, the Phillies just turned on the clutch gene. Top of the fifth, they score two. And they start to put together some real great at bats against Mizorowski, and they get a chance to chase him from the game, which is exactly what you needed to do. Get to the bullpen early for Milwaukee and try and go to work. Even though they do have a solid bullpen, they have some injury issues out there in the pen right now. And the Phillies were good enough to get to that in the sixth inning. And then that's when they really turned it on after the fifth, right? Sixth, they score three more. And the next thing you know, the Phillies, in just 3 innings of being down 5-1, have come back and now made it a 6-5 game. And then the Brewers immediately tie it up in the bottom of the sixth to make it 6-6. And then both teams score two in the eighth. And then the Phillies score two in the top of the ninth and end up winning 10-8. It's just like, it's crazy. The back and forth nature of this game was insane. Every time you thought the Brewers had the Phillies dead, the Phillies come up with a big multi-run inning. Every time you think the Phillies have finally come back and taken control of the game, the Brewers are right back in it. My immediate thought from last night's game was 7 games of this in October or 5 games of this in October is going to be sick if it ends up happening, just as like a baseball fan. Now, it will be, I'm going to need heart medication. I'm going to need to sit in a nice calm space because I might have a stroke if I have to watch that many games of what we saw yesterday. But for just the good of baseball, this would be a hell of a matchup in the postseason. It's because both of these teams have the ability to come up clutch, have the ability to throw out of the pen, throw some good starters at you. But more importantly, it just feels like every guy that steps to the plate has a chance to do something that changes the course of the game. While the names on Philadelphia's side might be better, the Brewers have been showing that all year with guys you might not totally know yet or totally expect. Well, you know them after yesterday. So how did the Phillies do it? How did they fight through what was a situation where I called them dead? And then I called it when they scored 3 runs in the top of the sixth, potentially the game of the year. And then I canceled game of the year watch in the 8th inning when they gave up 2 more runs and let the game be tied at 8. And then I put game of the year watch back on in the top of the ninth when they scored 2 more. That Joan Duran closes the door. Like, how did the Phillies get the job done? There are mainly 2 guys to look at that carried the Phillies yesterday, and they were not the typical names that you'd expect. I mean, Kyle Schwarber went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. How in the world did the Phillies win that game? Well, Brandon Marsh went 4 for 5, and all of his hits came in big-time spots. Now, he only scored 2 runs, but it was just hit after hit after hit after hit for Brandon Marsh, creating long at-bats, getting pitch counts up there, and then winning them, getting traffic on the base paths to make the job easier for other guys in the lineup. It just so happens, funny enough, that the guy batting directly behind Brandon Marsh also had a great day, and that was Harrison Bader, who went 3 for 5, 3 RBIs, all of them in big spots. Now, am I telling you that in a postseason series, Brandon Marsh and Harrison Bader can consistently be the guys that save this team? No, I'm not going to tell you that because, well, we know Marsh can go cold as anybody at any time. And we haven't seen enough of Bader to know how consistently he's going to be able to do something like that. But what I will tell you is this. Those are the types of performances that make differences in these kind of games. It's not necessarily Schwarber. It's not necessarily Harper, who did have a nice day with that home run. Ended up going 2 for 5. Trey Turner goes 2 for 5 with 2 RBIs. He was big as well. Like, it does take kind of everybody when you're in that type of situation. Like, here were the Phillies with RBIs yesterday. Turner, Harper, Marsh, Bader, Kepler had one. Sosa had one. Stott had one. Like, it takes everybody, but the real margin for error is made up by having those guys in the bottom part of your lineup come up huge. And the Phillies did yesterday. You know what? I hate to keep bringing up the Mets series, right? But it's crazy how you see a team like the Brewers, who has the best record in the National League, They do. And rightfully so, because they just don't seem to die ever in any game. But you see a team like that, and the Phillies go, yeah, okay, cool. We're facing one of your better starters. Don't care. Facing some of your good bullpen arms. Don't care. We're going down big early. Don't care. We're just going to battle back, and we're going to steal this win from you on your home field and send you home angry. And then you see them play the Mets, and it's like you give up 1 or 2 runs, and everything collapses, right? And they never fight back. I don't know what it is with the Mets that the Phillies can't do what they did against the Brewers. Not that I'm saying I expect them to have that type of game all the time, but like I don't know. I'd like to see it against the Mets. But end of the day, it was an incredible fight from the Phillies. I would love to give love to the bullpen. I can't really because a couple of guys struggled out of the bullpen. And that was just the nature of the game. But every time you toss guys out there, that's like, okay, man, we really needed a shutdown inning there and we didn't get it. The offense picked it right back up with great at-bats, clutch hit after clutch hit. And that's what made it the win of the year for the Philadelphia Phillies. It was just great, gritty, tough. We're not going to lose this game baseball. And it's been a minute since we've seen the Phillies just kind of chest up and take over a game that they had no business being in like that. Oh, and by the way, if there's any Brewers fans checking this out that are salty about the call with JT Realmuto, JT could have been struck out in a big spot in the game. And check swing, first base umpire said he did not swing. It led to Pat Murphy getting ejected, screaming every bad word in the book at the first base umpire. And almost Ricky Weeks almost got ejected too. I didn't realize Ricky Weeks was one of their bench coaches. Good to see him. I miss seeing Ricky Weeks play baseball, but not even close to a swing. Come on. That was not even close. He clearly held, right? I'm going to stick to that story, even though if you do watch it back, it looks like you probably could have called a strike on him. But I'm going to stick to the company line. JT didn't even come close to swinging. What are you watching? What are you talking about? Come on, get out of here. Hit the showers early, and we will take this win. Hey, sometimes you got to have things bounce your way, and sometimes you got to have calls go your way. And we've seen plenty this year go against the Philadelphia Phillies. So, sorry, Milwaukee. We'll take them where we can get them. Coming up next, during that game yesterday, I had this weird connection in my mind that I can't believe I haven't had to this point about the future of the Philadelphia Phillies outfield. And it's actually super easy to see how this outfield becomes not just a net neutral, no, a positive in a very realistic scenario as soon as next year. I think it will be, I should say, very easy for Dave Dombrowski to handle this offseason as long as one thing happens that's a big-time question mark. What is that, and what are the moves, and why in the world was I thinking about it? I think I have answers to all of those. I'm still not sure. You'll hear what I have coming up next as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. All right, let's talk about Prize Picks first because this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. It's quick, it's easy, and honestly, it's my favorite way to follow along with football or baseball, basketball, hockey, any of those. I love checking the projections and seeing, well, just more or less. That's how easy it is. So like Josh Allen for more or less than 270 passing yards in week 1, or Saquon Barkley for more or less than 1 rushing touchdown. Give me the over in both of those. I feel darn good about both of those. And the best part is, even if one of your picks misses, Prize Picks invented the flex play. So you can still double your money even if you miss one. So where else would you get that kind of deal? Come on, man. That's why you got to download the Prize Picks app. You better do it today because we are just 2 days away from opening night of professional football. And use code LOCKEDONMLB and you'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. You know it's good to be right. Let's also talk about FanDuel. FanDuel is the best, and the NFL season is almost here. And FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Here's what you want to do. Go to week 1 and check the schedule. Or go to week 2 of college ball and check the schedule and find the biggest money line favorite you can find. And just bet $5 on them to win the game outright. Right? They're not going to lose. It's easy. Teams blow out teams all the time early on in the season. And you will get the $300 in bonus bets. And then you can use all of that to make the flyer bets, the future bets, the ones that you're not sure about, player props, all the fun stuff, right? That's the strategy. It's super easy to do. And that's why FanDuel is the best for giving you this deal. But there are other reasons why FanDuel is the best. They have bets on everything from, again, player props, futures, over-unders, game lines, everything you want to bet on the upcoming football season, you can find it on FanDuel. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. And it's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Go ahead and check out our friends over at FanDuel. All right, let me tell you about this. If you haven't heard and haven't seen our last couple of episodes, we're doing something very important here at Locked On, and we need your help. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thank you very much for helping us out. So a chance for you to win some money and tell us what you think. If you go onto the survey and you're like, hey, that host on Locked On Phillies was tweeting out that he gave up on the Phillies in inning 1 of the game against the Brewers. And then he was tweeting game of the year before the game was over and the Phillies almost blew it. And I wanted to stop tweeting stuff prematurely. Hey, you can put that in the survey as well. I had a lot of people mad at me for that yesterday. Hey, listen, I said it. We're on Game of the Year watch. I didn't say it was, or Win of the Year watch. And it turns out it did end up being Win of the Year. So I don't know why everyone was mad at me. You just got to let it bake in. I had it the whole way, right? No, dude, I thought they were cooked in like the first or second inning of that game. Hey, even the greats miss one every once in a while. No, man. It's fun to be wrong when you think the team is cooked and they fight back. And that's a good sign that the Phillies did something special yesterday, because normally when I'm like, okay, this one's over, I bat like 900 on those or 999 on those. But yesterday was a special win. And I had a very interesting thought while I was sitting on the couch watching the game yesterday. And I'll tell you what prompted it. Obviously, we talked about the guys in the first segment. Brandon Marsh had a big day. Harrison Bader had a big day. I was like, okay. I think I can see how this outfield situation goes for the Philadelphia Phillies, right? Here's what you need to get done. So first and foremost, the ultimate key to this whole strategy working is re-signing Kyle Schwarber, because that is the number one key to anything working this offseason. So that is still absolute priority. Phillies, get it done. You need Kyle Schwarber as part of this lineup to add pop, because that will be the one thing that the outfield that I'm putting together here in my mind for the 2026 Phillies needs to work, right? So Harrison Bader, I love what he's been. He is an everyday player for this team. He needs to be, right? He needs to be out there. But I'm going to go one further. I want to see the Philadelphia Phillies pick up his mutual option for 2026, right? They'll have to come to terms with it. It'll be $6.25 million with up to $2 million in potential bonuses for the 2026 season. That's nothing, man. That's less than you're paying Max Kepler currently to be on this team. I'd rather have Harrison Bader. Better defensive player, seems to just like, I feel like if you gave Harrison Bader a longer term deal, which I'm not even asking for, I'm just saying like pick up his mutual option for 2026, get him in on that and just be like, yo, this city's going to love you, because I can feel the fan base starting to fall in love with Harrison Bader. He needs to play every day. Well, let's say you go ahead and you do that. That's easy. You don't even have to negotiate against other teams. You just have to get him in on that mutual option. And if the Phillies continue to have a good year, I can see him wanting to be here. You bring in Harrison Bader. He is one of your outfielders. I would say your center fielder, and I would say your everyday center fielder for the Philadelphia Phillies in 2026. Brandon Marsh, you bring him back as well, right? I've been back and forth on Marsh this year. I know you're saying, well, Connor, you're a big Brandon Marsh guy. Yes, but I'm also realistic about what you're looking for out of the outfield, right? And he's not consistent enough to say, okay, I want to roll into a season with the outfield dependent on Brandon Marsh. Now, can he be part of an outfield? Absolutely. And I think it would make so much sense to have him back in this outfield as a left fielder. I know he had the slow start this year, and that makes people a little squirrely about him still being on this team. But he's not eligible for free agency until after the 2027 season. So he's still arbitration eligible. You're spending no money on him. Remember, cheaper outfield, better chance to re-sign Schwarber. That's why that was the first part of this. So Bader in center, Marsh in left, or maybe right, and then you call up Crawford, who will also be under team control. You don't have to sign any crazy contract. You don't have to pay him. You have Bader in center, Marsh in left, Crawford in right. And that is what you go with. Or Crawford in left, Marsh in right. And eventually, maybe even just after next season, you can move Crawford over to center field as soon as that Bader's mutual contract year is up, right? The mutual option year. And then you have money to sign Kyle Schwarber. I don't hate that outfield of Bader, Crawford, Marsh. I think that's solid defensively. I think you have two guys at least, that will put together good at bats consistently, and Marsh, we'll see. But then you can bring Kyle Schwarber back because you don't have the $10 million attributed to Max Kepler. You might say, well, Connor, where's Nick Castellanos? Connor, where's Max Kepler? They're not re-signing Max Kepler. We know that. Sorry, Max. See you later. Then you can trade Castellanos to add pitching in case you lose Ranger Suarez. Get a guy in that has maybe more team control or is on a lesser contract than what you would have to pay Ranger Suarez. Maybe get a hit on something like that. So you can add to your pitching staff because your rotation is going to need help next year by trading Nick Castellanos. You can lower the price of your outfield while improving the players that are out there, and you can give yourself wiggle room to sign Kyle Schwarber. That's the way. That's what needs to happen this offseason in the Philadelphia Phillies outfield. And it's simple because you have all of that under your own control, right? All of these are your current players. It requires you not to go out and get anybody. Is that a crazy theory, or is that what you want to see with the outfield? Because I think it's a no-brainer. I don't know. My brain was working yesterday. So, again, Bader in center. Let's go Marsh in right. Crawford called up, plays left. Trade Castellanos for pitching help. Re-sign Kyle Schwarber to make up for the pop of the outfield. Great defense. Good opportunity to create some offense lower down. And, hey, I think it would create some interesting opportunities to rework this lineup and change maybe the DNA of this team in a positive direction. All of this hinges on how the rest of the season goes, of course, but I think that's the way to do it. Coming up next, speaking of how this season goes, we haven't checked in on the standings in a little bit. Where are the Phillies after taking 3 or 4 from the Braves? Game 1 in Milwaukee, but also getting swept by the Mets. What is happening in the National League and the NL East and baseball in general? We'll do our off-day standings check-in as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. All right, let's talk a little bit about our friends over at Upside. Because if you're still paying full price for gas, you're not alone. But I want you to stop leaving money behind. You can get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. You can use my limited time promo code SEASON and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas that you already needed in the first place. At first, I was like, yeah, this sounds too good to be true. What, you're just going to pay me to get gas? But no, it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code SEASON for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. You get 12 gallons. What's that math? $3? I think that's math. Makes sense. Anyway, use my promo code SEASON, SEASON, for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code SEASON. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. So let's check in on the standings. Sorry if my voice is continuing to go on me throughout the episodes. Thank you for bearing with me today. Fighting through it for you guys. But hey, when you're a big time podcaster, you got to make big time plays, and sometimes you got to fight through your voice going on you. But it's easy to talk about the Phillies after a day like yesterday, and they actually have been at a pretty solid stretch. We got so caught up emotionally, and rightfully so, in that series with the New York Mets and the sweep at the hands of the hated Mets, that I think we forget, hey, the Phillies are still kind of cementing themselves as a really darn good baseball team. And they have the inside track to the 2 seed in the National League. Maybe even the 1 seed in the National League. Now, I wouldn't get too far ahead of anything, all right? Aaron Nola throws tomorrow. We're going to preview that game on tomorrow's episode. And the Phillies still have an uphill battle to win one of these final 2 games in Milwaukee, right? They had to fight tooth and nail to find one last night, or I guess yesterday afternoon. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Bottom line is this. The Phillies are in a good spot in the standing. They have the second best record in all of baseball at 80-58. They trail only the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, you trail them by 4.5 games, but you just saw the Phillies can beat that baseball team. Can they do it consistently? We'll find out over the next 2 days, or I guess 3 days if you count today, Tuesday. But the Phillies can hang with that team. Right behind the Phillies are the Detroit Tigers, 80-59, just one more game in the loss column. Phillies won the season series against the Tigers. Toronto Blue Jays. Phillies played well in one series against the Blue Jays, not so well in the other. But we've seen the Phillies play that Blue Jays team tough. Cubs, next up down there at 79-59. You hold the season series against them. Dodgers, 78-59. You've won the only series against them. Yankees, 76-61. Won the season series against them. Red Sox, 77-62. Won the season series against them. The Phillies have handled business against some of the top teams, and that's why they're 4.5 games off the best record in baseball and currently hold the second best. When you look at the National League, the next closest team behind the Phillies is actually the Cubs, who are now just 5.5 back on the Brewers and making a late push. So keep an eye out there on the Chicago Cubs. Now, the good news is the Phils do have the tiebreaker. That's why winning these series against other good teams is important. So if you end up tied with the Cubs, and the Cubs are a division winner, you will be the 2 seed or maybe the 1 seed, depending on how things play out. That's why you want to be ahead of Milwaukee. Or if you win all 3 in Milwaukee, you have the tiebreaker over both of those teams. But the other thing you want to look at too is the Phillies' run differential has really picked up. They're tied for 3rd in the National League in run differential at plus 101 with the Dodgers. The next highest team outside of the Dodgers, Brewers, and Cubs, along with the Phillies, is the New York Mets at plus 66. Run differential is a good sign of not just a good team, but a clearly better than their opponent's team. And the Phillies are firmly in that category at this point in the year. And then, as we look at the NL East, I don't want to lose track of the NL East. The Phillies are now 6 games back up on the Mets. What have the Mets been doing since their series with the Philadelphia Phillies? Well, currently they're playing the Tigers. They did win 10-8 yesterday against the Tigers. They're in the middle of game 2 of that series. They lost 3 of 4 to the Miami Marlins right off the rip after playing the Philadelphia Phillies. They sweep, and then they get the Marlins at home, and they lose 3 of 4. Now, the Phillies, right after this series with the Brewers, will get the Marlins down in Miami. And then it's back to Citizens Bank Park for a series with the New York Mets, 4 games. So this can get squirrely real quick in the National League East. If the Marlins play them well, if the Mets play the Tigers well, and then back to square one, you play them for 4 games at your place, and who knows what's going to happen, right? But 6 games as we sit here on September 2nd should feel pretty darn good about their chances to lock up the division with only what? There's 138 games played, so 162 minus 138. Not a math guy, folks. Bear with me. Never claimed to be a math guy. 24 games remaining, 6-game lead. I'm not going to call this over, not by a long shot, because the NL East and crazy things happen all the time. But I'll just tell you the Phillies are in a pretty darn good spot. By comparison, right? Let's just look at division leads around baseball and who has the biggest. AL East, 2.5-game lead for the Blue Jays. AL West, 3-game lead for the Astros. AL Central, obviously, the Tigers have been good all year. They have a 9-game lead. The National League Central, down to 5.5. We told you that with the Cubs. National League West, 2.5. Dodgers hold over the Padres. Phillies have the second biggest division lead in baseball at 6 games. They're in a good spot, and it was a great win yesterday. We'll see if they can follow that up tomorrow with another one up in Milwaukee. But off day tonight, enjoy it, get some rest. I know I'm going to need to. Maybe that game was so topsy-turvy yesterday that got me like a head cold. I don't know, but I'm crushing cough drops. Hopefully I'll have my voice fully back for tomorrow. But either way, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'm going to get some rest. I'll talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.